Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table. Welcome back for another card crafting video. I'm going to be doing a bit of watercoloring, so I pulled out some Canson XL watercolor paper. But first I'm going to die cut a section out of my card panel. I'm going to use a stamp set from My Favorite Things called Pretty Poppies. And I'm going to stamp them up with some distress ink. This one is called Ripe Persimmon, and I thought it was the perfect color for these kind of reddish-orange poppies. I'm using a few products from My Favorite Things in this card video because I'm entering this card into their 2016 Card Design Superstar contest. This contest sounds like a lot of fun, so if you're interested, you'll have to check out their blog. After I stamp out my images, I'm going to paint over them with some watercolors just to smoothen out some of the blotches and give it some depth. I'm using my Prima watercolors again, and I just mixed up a little bit of the orange and the red together. I also add some yellow highlights, and then I'm going to let this panel dry and go over it again with more highlights. They didn't quite show up this first time. I'm adding some dark brown to the center of this poppy. Then I grab one of my smaller brushes so I can work on the stamen. My red paint is completely dry, but I'm just using little flicking motions to kind of cover up that white paper. I'm just kind of feathering that out. And then I'm going to go back in with more highlights on these poppies, so I'm pulling out my yellow. This is just very fun and easy watercoloring on this card today. I'm also going to add some brown paint to the second poppy just to give it some more dimension. Now I can move on to the poppy bud and the stems. I'm using Mowed Lawn Distress Ink for that. I have used this Pretty Poppy stamp set in one of my previous card videos. This is definitely one of my favorite stamp sets. I love how it comes with several different stems. And I love the text block that it comes with and all of the sentiments included. I'm going to mask off this lower poppy so that I can stamp the stem to the other poppy over it. I don't need to cut out the whole mask. I just don't want a green line running through my flower. For my poppy bud, I'm just going to draw in the stem. I'm using some more of the Mowed Lawn Distress Ink for that. And then I'm just going over the bud itself to take out some of the blotchiness. I'm going to go over my other stems as well. I'm going to stamp up some of the leaf images for the bottom of this panel. This is the first time I've tried stamping with distress inks, and it is a lot of fun. The last time I used this poppy set, I used my Prismacolor pencils over it, and I did second generation stamping. But this time was fun because it was just more loose. I'm filling in around the flowers with some Twisted Citron distress ink. And then I'm going to add some more Mowed Lawn, some more greenery around the leaves. For the blue around the poppies, I'm using the Prima watercolors again. I watered down this blue a lot, and it's still pretty vibrant. When it dries, it does lighten up a little. I'm gently blending in the blue with the green. Now I'm going to drop some paint spatters across the panel. This part is very nerve-wracking for me. I don't want to ruin this panel that I spent time painting. The paint spatters were very small, so I'm going to use the brush just to paint some larger dots onto the panel. I really liked this effect. other than the fact that I got paint spatters all over my desk and work surface, but I think it was worth it. I'm going to ink up the text block that came with this set with some Poppy Red My Favorite Things ink. I just love the look of text backgrounds on cards. I'm going to keep inking it up and working my way up the card panel. I'm trying to be careful to line that up precisely. Now I'm going to go on to my sentiment, and I stamped that up twice. I didn't like how the first one looked. And it says, "You always seem to bloom in adversity." I'm using the same rounded edge die to cut this out. I'm just going to tape that in place with some micropore tape. I'm also cutting out a red panel. This red cardstock is also from My Favorite Things, and it's also called Poppy. I'm very matchy-matchy today. I wanted to matte this sentiment with this red cardstock, otherwise it seems to get lost on my card panel. I'm also going to matte my white panel onto some more of the red cardstock. I pulled out my Tombow tape runner for that, and I'm just going to center this onto the panel. I'm going to use a lot of Tombow tape runner here for the watercoloring panel. It did warp a little, but this tape will help keep it flat. Now I can just pop that panel into place. I'm using some foam squares for my sentiment. This will give the card a little bit of dimension. And one more touch for this card, I'm going to tie some May Arts twine around the top. This is very thin twine, so I did wrap it around the card a few times so that it shows up better. Now I can just tie my bow. My bow ends up being kind of askew, but I like the effect on this card. I have some Nina 110-pound cardstock that I'm going to use for the card base. I'm going to score it here in the middle. And then I can smooth it down with my bone. Thank you for joining me for this week's card video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give me a thumbs up if you did. And you can also subscribe if you'd like to be notified when I make my next card video. One last touch for this card. I'm pulling out another sentiment, and it says "Thinking of You," and I'm just going to stamp that inside the card. And that finishes off my card. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Bye!